So this halacha is titled "The 6 Days in Shabbat." And as an introduction, I'll just give you something amazing that I heard from Rabbi Gladstein. I'm not sure if it's his chiddush or somebody else's, but he says that when it says "Ele Moadei Hashem" in Parashat Emor, that we are sanctifying the holidays of Hashem, it starts with Sheshet Yimim Ta'aseh Melacha. So the 6 days of creation and Shabbat are not dependent on the Jewish Beit Din in Jerusalem to declare when the new month is. It's every 7 days, it's going to be Friday night. So his explanation, again, I don't remember if he quoted somebody or if it was his own idea. His explanation is when it says Sheshet Yimim Ta'avod, it actually relates to Yantiv because there's 6 days of Yantiv from the Torah that we are allowed to work for the what's called Ochel Nefesh, for preparing food. So Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, first day of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, first day of Pesach, and the last day of Pesach. Because of course the Torah was written without the notion of the 2 days of Galuyot, of the diaspora. So he explains that Sheshet Yimim Ta'avod is to say that's why Shabbat is mentioned here, because unless Yom Tov and Shabbat coincide with each other, you're allowed to work on those 6 days for preparation of food for Yom Tov. So just a very, very interesting introduction because obviously we talked yesterday even about how Shabbat told Hashem that every day has a pair and she doesn't. And so just to give that as a background. So, the 6 weekdays and Shabbat are interconnected. Just as every person has a body and a soul, so too the week has a body and a soul. Weekdays are its body and Shabbat is its soul. Just as a wholesome person's body and soul work together harmoniously, the body receiving spiritual illumination from the soul and providing it with the means to express itself, so too a wholesome week integrates Shabbat with the days of the week. During the week, we prepare for Shabbat and give concrete expression to the ideas behind Shabbat, while on Shabbat, we draw the spiritual strength that takes us through the week. So there was an argument between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, or maybe it was Shammai and Hillel themselves, about when they come to the market and they see something nice, do you say that this is for Shabbat, or do you expect that tomorrow you might find something even nicer to be for Shabbat? And even yesterday he mentioned by passing that the blessing of Shabbat is what influences the Shefa, the loving kindness and provisions of Hashem for the rest of the week. On the one hand, we relate to Shabbat as the weekend. All week we prepare for its culmination, Shabbat, which in turn elevates the actions undertaken during the 6 weekdays and imbues them with meaning. On the other hand, Shabbat is also the anchor and beginning of the next week, and that's why in the Jewish tradition we have Motzei Shabbat. That's when we say Shavua Tov, because our week does not start on Happy Monday. From Shabbat, we draw spiritual strength for the upcoming week so that we are able to realize through our activities the spiritual values that we absorb on Shabbat. Thus, the life of a Jew is not a uniform continuum that moves toward erosion and entropy. On the contrary, it is life of constant elevation. So we're always climbing. Sometimes it's a spiral, sometimes it's continuum, sometimes it's upwards. These two aspects can be explained as follows. From the perspective of the world, the creation of the 6 weekdays preceded Shabbat, while from the perspective of man, created on the 6th day, Shabbat preceded the following 6 days, and later on we'll learn in the Halacha of Havdalah that that's why we light the candle, because Hashem gave the Adam and Eve the gift of fire after they were thrown out of the Garden of Eden, which we believe was Motzei Shabbat. Sages offer another perspective on the relationship between Shabbat and weekdays. Shabbat is in the middle of the week, with 3 days preceding it and 3 days following it. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we prepare for the upcoming Shabbat, and on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the influence of Shabbat, of the outgoing Shabbat, is still felt. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but the Amshon of Rebbe actually used to keep Shabbat for 3 days well, 4 days until Tuesday morning when he made Havdalah. Since Shabbat is linked to the 6 weekdays, it is clear that the greater one's actions during the week, the greater the heights he will achieve on Shabbat. Similarly, the greater the heights he attains on Shabbat, the more he will be able to infuse the ensuing week with sanctity and meaning. Maharal explains that the idea of Shabbat is hinted in the number of days of the week. Everything physical has 6 sides: up, down, front, back, right, and left, like a die, the cube. The number 7 expresses inner essence. Similarly, the physical world was created in 6 days, and on the seventh day, Shabbat, the sacred essence of the world was created. So I wanted to conclude with, first of all, a correction to the story of Rabbi Dasberg. It was actually his uncle who died a few months before the Holocaust ended, but he was able, as the chief rabbi of Holland, to smuggle a mini Torah into the camp, and he celebrated a bar mitzvah of a man who is now in his, I guess, 80s. And managed to also smuggle the mother of this boy, who didn't even know that her son was alive still, to his cabin, and he read from the Torah. And then immediately after the bar mitzvah, the rabbi gave this small Torah to the bar mitzvah boy as a gift, and he said to him, "You'll guard the Torah, and the Torah will guard you. Therefore, this is like a promise that you will survive the Holocaust." And he did become, he did survive, and he made Aliyah, and he's a professor, I think, in the Weizmann Institute. He had some kind of experiment that he wanted to be done in space, and so as NASA was already training Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli astronaut, he gave him the Torah that he was given by the chief rabbi, Rabbi Simon Dasberg, and he took it to space with him. I don't know if it survived, but the tefillin that Ilan Ramon took with him to space did. And of course, Dr. Yoyachin was in Cape Canaveral or wherever it was, monitoring, because the Columbia, as opposed to the Challenger, broke apart coming into the stratosphere, as opposed to the opposite with Challenger that blew up on its way to space. The reason I'm mentioning this is because in our parsha, and we talked about it in terms of tefillah and in terms of Shabbat, in this week's parsha, it says a very interesting expression where Abraham is standing and serving the angels. So the rabbis say usually the concept of angels is omdim, they stand still, and then of course even in Jacob's dream they're going with their wings up and down the ladder, but they're not walking linearly, they're walking up and down, so they don't have the capability of the 2 feet. That's why in Kedusha we put our feet together, and also in the Amida, according to most. And so Abraham didn't know, or maybe didn't know, that these 3 guests that he had were angels, but when he figured it out, it says, Hu Omed Alehem. So the angels, according to the prophecy in Zechariah, are considered Omdim, and the humans are considered Me'alchim, walking. So Avraham, because he realized that they were angels, he reversed it. He was Omed Alehem L'Sharatam, and they pretended to eat as if they were human. So the holiness and the sanctity of Shabbat, the holiness and sanctity of all of our lives, whether we keep Shabbat or not, that's what is in the essence of this idea, that we are united with the whole world. Yes, the Christians start their weekday on Monday instead of Sunday or Saturday night, but there is not one religion, one ethnic group in the world that doesn't agree that there's 7 days of the week. And so this is one of the gifts that Hashem gave to us in order for us to pass it on to others. And so Avraham actually achieved all kinds of things, according to Rashi and the Midrash, for the sake of his descendants, where he he made the angels. I'll just end with this. He made the angels eat butter and meat, and when Moshe Rabbeinu was coming there to receive the Torah, the angel said, "Why should a human accept the Torah?" And Hashem said to Moses, "Hold on to my throne and answer them." And one of the answers he gave them is, "You yourself messed up by eating meat and milk in Avram's house, so we can't trust you with the Torah." That's how beautiful our traditions are, and how much we can appreciate even just talking about Shabbat without. We're still not up to the malachot, to the prohibitions. We're just into the explaining of the uniqueness of this relationship, of how special it is for us to have the Shabbat. And we'll stop here.